another fantastic song from the legendary Glitter Band. And talking about legendaries from the Glitter Band, we're now joined on the phone by the legendary John Rossall. Good evening to you, John.
Hi, Dave. How are you? Okay.
You know what? I'm really, really good tonight. How do we find you on this Wednesday night?
I'm pretty good, actually. Pretty good.
You're at home tonight. You've got a night off, have you?
I've got a night off. That's quite true.
So, John, you was a founder member of the Glitter Band.
Yes, I formed the band a long, long time ago. The band actually used to be called the Boston Show Band. And, of course, when we came along and we worked with Gary, we changed our name to the Glitter Band. It was 1972, if I remember rightly.
The earliest recollections I've got was you called the Glitter Men.
That is a bit of a myth, really, because that was something that was announced on stage one night, and it kind of stuck, but it was not an official thing. I had the choice of calling the band the Glitter Men or the Glitter Band when we came to do Angel Face, and I thought the Glitter Band had a better ring to it, so we went with that instead.
Okay, so that was your choice to call it the Glitter Band?
Yes.
Oh, I see. I didn't know if it was anything to do with Mike Leander or Gary himself, but it seemed to go hand in hand really well.
It did, and it made the shows a bit more interesting, although they were quite interesting already, but it was an added extra when we had our own hit to add to the show, really, so it made it even better, just for us as well as the public.
Now, you co-wrote, John, Angel Face, Just For You, and Let's Get Together Again.
Yes, that's correct.
The biggest hit of those, of course, was Angel Face, which is now coming up to its 40th birthday celebrations. What's actually happening now with Angel Face, John?
Well, it's still getting played around the world. It's still a favourite song in our set when we're playing live shows, and as you just said, it's 40 years old, and we're doing a few music venues around the country this year just to celebrate that fact, really. Yeah,
and I believe you're coming up to Glasgow in April.
Yeah, Glasgow is one of our favourite places from way back when we used to play the Apollo.
Wow.
Back in the 70s, and really looking forward to that one.
So what was it like, John, back in the 1970s? Was it easier being a musician back in the 1970s than what it is compared to today?
It's hard to compare, I think. Obviously, it's always a lot easier when you're currently in the charts every week, but the actual life of it all is, there's so many things changed. It's a long, long time ago. Bands don't get known in the same way, and the big record companies really have taken a back seat nowadays. A lot of independent stuff on the internet, downloads.
Yeah.
When we were going, the amount of records we sold in the UK, which was over 500,000, no one sells that now, really. Very, very, very rarely.
No, but
you'd be number one for 6, 7, 8 months.
Yeah, back in the day, see, people had to physically go out to a record shop and buy that record. Okay, nowadays, the music is available off the internet. So, like you say, nobody sells them amount of songs anymore. But to reach a million seller back in the 70s, to reach a gold disc or even a silver disc was some kind of achievement in itself. Yeah,
it was always great. And who knows, maybe it's because of the generation that I'm from. It seemed, I remember long ago, before the Glitter Band and everything, when I used to go and buy singles, and that the feel of a vinyl 45, and it's much the same as books nowadays. A book in your hand, you can read a book on the internet on a tablet and all that. I'm aware of that, but is it the same, or is it just older people who remember the good old days?
Yeah, I said last week, when we look back at the 1970s, John, everything seemed to be a much better world. The memories I get was you could go out and leave the house open, and you was allowed to play games at school, what you're not allowed to play anymore. But am I looking at it through rose-tinted spectacles? Was it really as good as what we tried to remember it was?
Well, some people say that it's because you only remember the good things, but I don't think I agree with that, really, because it is a different world we live in, and musically it's a different world, and that's why it's so difficult for new bands to break through, because if you look at music, there's only so much you can do, and there isn't a lot of leeway for a new band to create something different. We did have something different, and most bands that broke through to the charts and then you put a record on, and within about 5 seconds, you would know who the artist was.
Yeah.
And people can try and be different and original, but it gets harder and harder, I would imagine.
See, back in the day, John, people like yourself, the Glitter Band, and Mark Bolan and T-Rex and Slade and the Sweet and everybody, you all had to do, you had to kind of do an apprenticeship. You started off at the working men's clubs and you worked your way up and up. How do you feel now with the advent of all these talent shows, giving pop bands and singers instant stardom?
What I think is, I'm not a big fan of them, actually. I think the amount of people who have actually stayed the distance isn't, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't very many. And the thing is, like, just from my point of view, the apprenticeship was really done mostly out in Germany in the mid-60s towards the end of the 70s, when we played in Hamburg, at places like the Star Club, and we used to play for anything from 5 hours a night to 9 hours a night. And I don't know if a lot of bands would fancy that today, but it either made you or broke you. If you get what I'm trying to say, you actually got into it. It made you better because you were doing it every night, and you either got very, very good, or you thought, well, this is too much for me. I can't handle this. I'll try a different career, and that kind of experience, you can't buy it. And a lot of these people who win these shows, they don't have the mental capacity to deal with or experience to deal with a career like that.
Well, no, sir.
It's hard enough. It's hard enough having had that experience.
Yeah. Even now, Simon Cowell was making One Direction sit and watch Bay City Roller videos to try and learn about the experiences of being a massive pop band. Like you say, back in the day, you had to do everything. You had to run around in tatty old vans, and it was rock and roll. But today, with the advent of all these reality shows, I don't think it's the same. And this reflects in the music, because more and more of the newer songs what are coming out, you can feel the early 70s in a lot of these songs, and a lot of these bands, Oasis, etc. They're all reverting back to the music of the early 70s.
Well, everything goes round, in phases, really. The main point is, if a song is good enough, if a song is good, you can do it in almost any generation. All you do is dress it differently, but the actual song is the main thing that people hook onto. Yeah. So a really good song is timeless.
Mm-hmm. So
if you look at the Beatles songs,
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of them, they sound as fresh as ever, don't they?
Yeah, they certainly do. So as a young John Rossall back in the 1970s, who influenced you to become a pop star?
Well, going to what I was just saying, we were quite lucky, because in Germany, places like the Star Club, and we played with a lot of big American acts, like Little Richard, Chuck Berry, and a lot of the English acts came out there, Tom Jones, etc., and you can go on and on. So, and you do learn from these people, and you take a little bit from everybody. I think that's what eventually forms your own character, really. Mostly, I as a songwriter, the Beatles were the reason why I wanted to write songs, I would say.
Okay, that's a massive...
As an entertainer, you couldn't beat Sammy Davis Jr.
Really?
Absolutely, yeah.
Do you know, I got told a very unusual fact about Sammy Davis Jr. I was playing the Candyman, and somebody emailed in and said, actually, Sammy Davis actually hated that song. He didn't want to record it.
That could well be. Well, I wouldn't know. You know, a lot of things like that. It's like Telling was supposed to be our second single. I got an awful lot of pressure from the record company.
Okay.
And I wanted to keep the band's music more original songs from us. And sometimes I wondered if I'd do the right thing, but as you know, Hello, who were under the same management, in the same stable as us, Mike Leander gave it to them to do, and they had a massive hit with it, and, you know, all power to them.
So back in the 1970s, John, it was either the main two music programs at the time was Top of the Pops or Supersonic. Which did you prefer playing on?
But there was also, you're forgetting Lift Off.
Oh, Lift Off with Aisha.
Which was our actual, if I remember correctly, it was our debut with Angel Faith. Yeah, Lift Off. That was from Manchester.
Yeah.
But of course, Top of the Pops was the main one.
Yeah, because I suppose if you got on Top of the Pops, you knew you'd made it big. But also, I used to, as a young lad, I used to enjoy watching Mike Mansfield's Supersonic.
Oh, yeah. That was great. Well, that was a great show, too.
So if you could have been, John, this is a bit of a question for you to ponder on. If you could have been in any other glam rock band in the 1970s for a week, who would it have been?
Wow, now you don't half-ask them, Dave. That's a difficult one. I don't know, it could be Slade, Sweet, always more of a more for powerful rock and roll music as regards more some other bands that were more to make you sing along and you know. So the rock and roll bands would be one of them.
Yeah.
Well, from a musical point of view, song-wise, you couldn't beat ABBA, could you?
Yeah.
Great songwriters of the 70s. And, you know, that shows by the people still play that music and make films out of it and so on. But, yeah, it's difficult to say because I was always this is all I'd ever done. I'd never been in another band since them days.
Was you actually in the movie Never Too Young to Rock, or would you?
Yes.
You was in the movie?
I was the only one out of the band with any speaking lines. Yeah, I was. That was. It's a film that is more of the area. The era, should I say? It's people used to. That was made for people to just go see the music, listen to the music and watch. The plot line wasn't very hard to understand.
No. What was it like working with the Rubettes on that movie?
Oh, it was great. You know, we obviously I still do work with Alan at some shows, both here and abroad. Yeah, it was really good. A bit early start. We had to be on set at 6 o'clock in the morning. Wow.
Did you ever get the chance to work with Mark Bolan at all?
No, apart from Top of the Pops.
Mm-hmm.
No, but although I did used to see him socially down at the Speakeasy Club in London, because that's where everyone used to go after Top of the Pops was over on a Wednesday night. It was nearly the whole entourage was turned up there. You know, you'd sit there, you used to go down there, you'd see people that sadly aren't with us anymore, like Brian Connolly and Freddie Mercury, Bill Lynott, 10cc, Lieutenant Pigeon, Edwin Starr.
Yeah.
And I liked his music. Mark Bolan would say.
Yeah, he was always my first influence into music. We used to do a radio show dedicated to Mark Bolan and T-Rex. I thought he was very much an innovator and very much ahead of his time in the 1970s. He always seemed to be one step ahead of everybody else.
He was very artistic, very creative, and sadly died much too young. Yeah.
I've been asked to ask you, did you do any work or have you done any work with the Bay City Rollers at all?
Then again, you know, back in the 70s, it was our own shows, mostly with Gary, and then later on our own gigs. But we work with them more now than we did then, or with Eric, you know, and it's, you know, festivals abroad and, you know, do quite a lot of festivals at Butlins and so on.
So what we're going to do is we're going to play Angel Face next, and we'll let you get on and get your tea and get ready. Are you a Coronation Street man, John?
Oh, I don't mind. I have been known to watch it, yeah. yeah.
My wife often says to me, I don't listen to you on the radio because TV's too good on a Wednesday night.
Right. Well, it's been nice talking to you anyway, Dave. Don't do many interviews, but, hello to everyone who's listening, and hope to see you at one of our gigs soon.
Well, Gary Fairley got in touch with me, and he says, can you say hi to John and tell him that him and Kay will see you next month in Wakefield. He's really looking forward to that.
That's fantastic. Yeah, look forward to that. I think that we've met before. That'd be great.
So where can people get all the up-to-date information about you, John, about the gigs and everything?
Website.
Do you want to give it out?
It's glitter-rock. I can't remember if it's .com or .co.uk. You caught me unawares there. There's also another website, which is www.angelface40.com. And it's always... you see plenty of information knocking around Facebook, I'm sure.
Yeah. What I'll do is I'll get one of my admins to the Sounds of the 70s group to put the links onto our page, the radio show page.
Yes.
For them, we'll get them done for you, John. And if you're on Facebook later on, then you're more than welcome to leave us a message.
Of course I will, yeah.
On the Sounds of the 70s. I think you've been a member of this group now for about 2 years, and we've finally got you on the show. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I've enjoyed doing it, and hopefully see you at one of the gigs, in the near future.
Yeah, it's very hard. It's very, very hard for me because, as well as doing these radio shows, I'm actually a full-time working DJ. So I'm out working I'm out DJing every Thursday right the way through till Sunday. So it's hard for me to get to gigs at weekends. It's virtually impossible, John. Because you've got to put work first.
Yeah, you have to. Obviously. Are we finished now? Are we off air?
No, we're still on air because we're just going.
All right, okay.
We're just going to play Angel Face. So if you want to introduce this, John.
This is a song that was co-written by Jerry Shepherd and myself. Our first hit in the UK back in 1974, Angel Face.
Thank you, John. You're a wonderful person. Thank you for taking the time to come on the show tonight.
Thank you. Bye all.
Celebrating 40 years of Angel Face. What a nice man he is, that John Rossall. He's a legend. Yes, a massive thank you to John for taking the time to join us on the sounds of the 70s on this Wednesday night. Deb Bull in Cirencester says, hi, Deb.